Welcome to Clean Plates, where every bite tells a story. I'm Brian Romaine, joining you on a culinary journey to understand the whys behind our diets and desires. Every bite tells a story. I'm Brian Romaine, joining you on a culinary journey to understand the whys behind our diets and desires. Joining me today is Austin Nichols. Austin, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, so Austin is known in the community as the Wilderness Father. Austin does a lot of content that surrounds wilderness content and just a different view on kind of, I would call it survival guides, but there's a lot more than that because he definitely teaches people how to do different things alongside his amazing daughter. So, Austin, why don't you just explain to the audience, I guess, a little bit about just what exactly you're doing right now as the Wilderness Father?
Yeah, absolutely. So this started 6 months ago. I started documenting adventures that I was having with my daughter, and a friend of mine said that it would be inspirational if I started sharing those on social media. And as I started doing that, I started getting more support from families that were really interested in getting their kids outside. And I realized that this was a great opportunity to bring education to conservation and general wilderness survival skills that would help people get their families outside in a fun and safe manner.
That's awesome. I really like what you're doing because obviously this wasn't an overnight success, but you definitely have seen a huge traction of people just come to your page and share their stories and more just energy of what you're doing. So from an early age, have you always been into conservation and hunting and, just getting outside as well?
So many moons ago, I was a very rebellious teenager. And one summer, my parents, they sent me to a wilderness therapy program on the Appalachian Trail. And there I learned how to bow drill fires and forage for food and spend time comfortably in the woods by myself. And unfortunately, it didn't really work. I was a knucklehead all the way up until after college, but it definitely instilled a love for the outdoors in me. And then when we moved out to Colorado about 7 years ago, I got into hunting, fishing, and really started spending a lot more time outdoors.
No, absolutely. I mean, from the time that I met you, you've always been very salt to the earth, as well as you are somebody who cares about the quality. I mean, when I met you, you were making your own sourdough bread, and I now, inspired by that kind of action, have my own starter that I've made. And you gave me meat that you hunted yourself to try. And I mean, I think that's awesome because there's not enough people that there's not a lot of people that have the idea that if you hunt something yourself, you're going to have meat for so many months. I mean, it's really one of those things that I don't think people understand the math in being like, well, you're killing animals. Be like, yeah, but it's a conservation thing because those tags go back to preserving that animal's legacy, as well as most hunters these days are pretty smart about knowing the age of a buck, as well as you're not killing females. So you're only killing males and things like that. So I think it's great that you hunt and you fish. And so is that something that you still have your freezer stocked with meat and fish that you've hunted?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a year-round thing. I'm fully obsessed with hunting and fishing. And I think for me, it's not only about having a lot of meat as much as it is the gratitude that I have for any of the meat that we consume, right? I think that there are a lot of people, they're either misinformed or they just don't want to admit the fact that they're outsourcing the kill to a factory farming operation every time they consume meat, right? Or fish or even vegetables, right? Like anytime that you consume something from the grocery store, somewhere along the line, somebody's put that work in to harvest that crop or kill that animal. And I've really gotten into hunting and gardening and foraging because every time that I pull something out of the freezer to go ahead and eat it, or every time I give it to a friend, I am reminded of that memory of where I was and what I was doing when I harvested that food. And I think that as Americans and as human beings in general, we've gotten so far away from this concept of working for our food or taking part in the process of food in any way that anytime we eat something, we just take it for granted. So I think that hunting and fishing, you're putting in work. Yes, you are killing, but it's so much more than that. Every time you plant a garden, it's not like you're just pulling something from the ground. You're spending time in the off season, starting those seedlings and preparing the dirt, tilling the soil. And you have to, if you want to have a good crop, you have to put the time and effort in order to be able to do that. So I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor to take part in your food, and knowing where your food comes from is something that I think a lot more people are getting hip to, just because we've realized that these massive corporations are poisoning us.
No, I mean, that's a really good statement. Just the whole sentiment you put out there, I fully agree with. I mean, I grew up in Kansas in a duck hunting family where my uncles and my dad and my grandpa and my grandpa's father, when he was around, that was a whole thing that was all passed down from, the time that they were little. I mean, my grandpa would wear his World War II clothing because there wasn't anything to hunt in. That's all he knew. That's all he had was wool and some other materials that they, forged up. I think some like cargo and some some sort of like canvas or denim to wear. And then like waders became a thing after a while for duck hunting. But I just grew up in the idea that, killing an animal really wasn't like, killing, and it, you're not like just murdering things like maliciously. I've seen more hunters cry when they kill something versus anything else. There's just this wave of emotion that comes over you. And I fully agree with you. I think that we've gotten not only so far away from the system, but there's too many people who are unfortunately very influential that are supporting the things that are like the worst for us. Like, it breaks my heart to see people who have billions, if not, not millions, but billions of people following them. I won't mention names, but it's like, if you're like touting for Beyond Meat, there's a special place in hell for you, just because I even myself going to the butcher that I go to, I still sometimes wish that I hunted the animal, but I'm slowly getting into that again because my cousin Jeremy is a semi-professional hunter. That's basically all he does for a living. So I think the more steps you can do, at least just finding local butchers, or at least finding a family member that is quasi into it, is your first step.
Yeah, I don't think that you necessarily need to hunt as much as you need to take an active role in understanding where the food comes from. Like you said, supporting local businesses. There are plenty of resources to be able to find raw milk. And if you can find raw milk, chances are you can find eggs, you can find meat, you can find vegetables and other produce. So yeah, I think like rawmilk.com, you literally put in your zip code and it'll show you where farmers in your area are within 50 miles or so where you can go and stock up.
Yeah, absolutely. I have two friends outside of Golden that go to a farm in Boulder, I believe, just to get raw milk. And you have to get a lot of it, but it's like if you're consuming that much, which is like not a ridiculous amount to get, I think that you'll find the benefits in it, because even for me, I've had A2 milk, like really local A2 milk. That's pretty good. If you can't find that, like there's a company called Origin that makes really good A2 milk. It's from Longmont, Colorado. But I agree with you. If you're already putting in the effort and you drive to a place that has raw milk, chances are you'll run into somebody that also can get you eggs or meat or something, because there's not enough people that don't cop out with some sort of, gesture or excuse of why they can't do it. And, again, I would use harsher words, but I'm trying to keep it PG of, it just without like being like total Homer Simpson, just shaking somebody like Bart. It's just like, there's so many sources. I remember when I found the butcher that I go to now, and all I did was type in grass-fed, grass-finished beef, because they're the only place that actually carries it as far as a butcher. Now you can go other places that like Edwards Meats or other, supply that will get you good meat. But I just know, and also working at the butcher shop for as long as I did, that they carry certain things that you definitely can't get within I believe it's like a 500-mile radius of Colorado, just because unfortunately there's not enough places like that are supporting having a butcher on every corner of Denver or, anything like that. So, I mean, as a father, and you're also, you're a husband as well. So the two of you have to kind of come together with that as well. Thank God that your wife fully supports everything and is, all about eating good, and you guys both take care of yourself very, very well. But as parents, how do you explain to your daughter just at an early age so that she understands even things like organ meat and, some of the other kind of nitty or grittier stuff?
Well, we're not over here feeding our daughter organ meat just yet. I think that's a pretty hard sell, but
Facts.
I think as a parent, it is your responsibility to set an example for your children, because when left to their own devices, children are going to want to eat anything that's covered in sugar and has a really amazing picture on the box, right? And so a lot of times we'll offer two options to our kid for a meal, and both of them will be healthy options, and she can choose between those two, right? We don't want to be a czar related to what she's eating and not, but I think as parents, you do kind of have to set parameters of discipline for how you go about feeding your kid. And so we try to avoid things that are not whole foods. And, you can do a lot of different stuff that you can offer a lot of things that are palatable options to kids that are still whole foods, right? Fruits and vegetables can taste delicious. You just have to spend a little bit more time preparing them.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just think it's really admirable that you're doing it in general. Yeah, obviously you're not feeding her liver or heart or anything, but
I've definitely fed her heart, because heart is delicious. A lot of people have this misconception that heart is gross. It actually tastes just like steak. It's a little bit more tender, and she's a big fan of that. So we have fed her the heart, but liver is a little bit more difficult. I've had plenty of people try to tell me, "Oh, you got to try this new this new recipe that really makes this taste delicious. And every time I have yet to be super into it. I'm not going to eat it first choice, and I don't think anybody else in my family is. But I will eat it, just not in large amounts and not for enjoyment.
No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Just because, that's really cool that she eats heart, because I've like grilled it before with a little bit of lime juice, and it's phenomenal. It's just like
Yeah.
it's just like steak, like you said, but just a little bit more tender. But yeah, I understand. That's a hard sell. The only time I've ever had liver be like, I'm not kidding, like actually palatable and like I want more of this is the owners of the butcher shop that I used to work at have a recipe where it's ground beef and lamb, and then they chop up like heart and liver, and I don't think there's anything else, but they chop it up so fine and cook it down with tarragon and onions and carrots and celery, and it's all just like a very, there's other seasonings, salt, pepper, maybe some chili in there, but regardless, I think the tarragon just takes over, and for whatever reason, it just hides the very small amount of organ meat that's in there. But they're wizards, and they do all sorts of crazy things that I learned. I was in awe every time I would watch Josh and Kate, the owners of the butcher shop, Western Daughters, just do what they did, because they just knew how to handle, and they also live on the border of Canada and New York. And so they have like a really, tight ranch where they live off of everything that they grow and consume. So
yeah,
but other than that, I think it's really nice that you're taking the steps to kind of make it fun. You're giving her options to choose from. And then, in the background, if you want to take like a frozen piece of, liver and not take, because that's what I like to do, is just a little piece. And if it's frozen and I put it on my tongue, it's kind of like taking a capsule, because I'm not going to chew it. That's just not, it's just not palatable like that. Like, I'm not Joey Sorts out here just chewing liver on camera covered in maple syrup and Redmond salt. I mean, yeah. I commemorate him though. If you can find a way to get past the barrier of making that your daily thing, then go for it. But so as a father and as a husband, and you guys are prioritizing nutrition and giving her options, as time goes on, do you guys feel like that'll probably just change? Because it's really interesting to see her play with like hunting and fishing toys, more or less. But then I can see you're already slowly introducing her into the real stuff. So I think that's really cool. I think that's great that like it's kind of like I think it's really cool that and you're hooking up with companies that'll give you like a play fishing rod, like a play fly fishing rod, or like there's nobody that makes a play 22 like but it's I think it's really cool, because she is so young that by the time that she is like 10 or 12, she'll be like fully doing everything, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's already got a Red Ryder BB gun. It's in pink. I want to cater to the feminine side of things, but yeah, she's 5 now, so she's fully using a spinner rod. We're working up to fly fishing, but she's caught damn near 30 trout. And we're going, so this past season we killed a deer together. We were tracking it, and she actually found it because she was set up a little bit higher than I was in the kid carrier.
And she had like a walk. Oh, in the kid carrier. Okay, so you guys weren't even like distance apart. She was just higher up and could see it.
Yeah, she was higher up than me, and she could see it. I would not have found it if it weren't for her pointing it out. It was completely off the trail from where we had been blood tracking it. And we are planning on doing our first well, actually, this will be our second turkey hunt together next month. So all of these things, yeah, I'm getting her ready for a lifetime of resilience and self-sustenance. I think that
Yeah.
it's, having a daughter, it's a bit different dynamic where um, my wife focuses on the feminine aspect of raising her, and I like to focus on some of the more practical skills like hunting, fishing, running, and things like that to be able to uh, get her on the path to being as well rounded as possible.
No, that's really cool too, as well as like I like that you're teaching her really cool things like how to make trout dip. I think that's like, I mean, it's such a cool thing because it's unique, and that's something that you're teaching a 5-year-old who's they're sponges. Kids are
Yeah,
like sponges. They'll absorb so much at such a young age that it'll instill in them at 10, 15, 20 as the years go on that, well, no, this is my dad taught me this. Like this is cool because my dad taught me this.
yeah,
And I just think that's awesome because I'd also like to touch on to the fact that I really enjoyed that video that you made where you spoke on her approaching you and wanting to take ballet, I
yeah,
believe is what it was. And you said yes. There's no like grit behind what you're trying to teach her, like as in like malintention. Of course, there's
yeah,
always going to be like, this is intense and you need to do this the right way. Otherwise, you could get hurt. But I do like that you're being just a loving father in the sense that you're like, yeah, go do you're a girl, you want to do ballet. I think that's great. There's no arguing here. Yeah, obviously you shared that you had to have a little bit of a tennis match in your head at first, but
yeah,
at least I think it's honorable that you're not only sharing it, like you said. I mean, your videos are inspirational. They do touch heart on, with a lot of people, and you're inspiring as well as you're educating people, and you're kind of showing from an angle with such a large audience that you do have right now that, it's not just I'm a badass and I just want my kid to be a badass like me. It's just no, like I'm teaching her that I want to take her to do these things, and I hope that this is her choice to do these things with me. But also, if she wants to enjoy something like painting her nails, ballet, going to the mall with your wife or something, you
yeah,
can still do that and get your hair done and have a pink gun. And
yeah.
I think that's cool. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, man. Parenthood is hard, right? Anybody that tells you anything else has never raised a kid before, or it's not their kid. I mean, it's one of the hardest things that people do in this life because you want the best for your children, right? But that might not necessarily be what's best for them. And I think that ultimately the best thing that you can do for a parent is be supportive of their kids in hobbies and passions that are healthy, right? But might not always necessarily align with exactly what you want for them to do. And so it's a very fine balance between wanting to show them the things that you love in life and balancing that with the things that they want to do, right? Like, I'm not a huge fan of clarinet. If she wants to play clarinet, hell, I'll be right there with her, shooting on that thing, man. Because
That's cool.
if it brings her joy and it brings her understanding, then I think that supporting that is so much better than trying to fight her on doing something else. This is something that parents have struggled with and will always struggle with. I struggle with my dad. I wasn't a huge fan of organized sports, right? I wanted to get into the arts, and it was a huge area of contention in our relationship. And so I just want to focus on enabling my daughter, teaching her what I know as much as I can, but it all comes down to her because she's a human being, and it's really important to understand that as parents, we're raising a human being that has an individual will. It's not just our pet or, something that is along for the ride with us. They're going to have their lives too.
No, absolutely. One of my favorite comedians has a bit about one of his friends trying to compare dog love to kid love. And he's just like, dude, I just want to drown you. Like, are you serious right now? Like, there is nothing that compares to actually taking care of another living, breathing being that is going to be around for way more than an animal and has way more cognitive, it talks, it, tells you what it wants and things like that. So plus she's walking and if she's 5 years old, I even when I met her last year, she was just the most communicative, articulate, very polite too. She's a polite little girl. So, I mean, I get it, dude. Like, I understand. It's weird to say I understand where you're coming from, even though I have no idea where you're coming from. It's like I can only respect and relate to as much as I know from the knowledge of seeing other parents and how they operate, because I think that's another thing that is just unfortunately happening a lot, is that there's people who at one point got really bad nutritional habits or other, daily habits, and now their children are being affected by it. And you see it night and day difference when somebody who is taking care of themselves and then their kid sees that and they want to reflect that. Like, I saw a video the other day of this lady who's like one of the CrossFit games athletes, and she had like a little like barbell that Rogue made that was made of like plastic or something that her kid could do, some of the Olympic lifting with, because they saw her doing it. So I just think it's great that you're not only setting an example for her, but you continue to set an example for other people, because watching you journal, watching you get outside, watching you go for runs, watching you take care of yourself, get into the gym, stretching, all the yoga that you do, and all the intentional movement, that's even inspiring for somebody like me, because it allows me to have this like huge fire from somebody else that is just getting inside of me and my heart and like what I want to do. So I just want to let you know that it's like you are inspiring not only somebody who, I mean, I'm sure that she knows the magnitude of a lot of people follow you and they talk to you and stuff, but I mean, you're approaching 100,000 followers. That's just insanely a lot. It's a lot of people in general. And so just know that it's like, it's happening on such a magnitude for you where it's your local community, like myself and other people. It's people out in the United States or the world itself that are seeing it. And it's people at your house that are seeing it as well. So I just want to let you know, you're kind of hitting the trifecta.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Like I said, I started this channel with the idea that I wanted to inspire others and hold myself accountable as well, right? I am aware that someday I'll be gone, and within 2 generations, I'll probably be forgotten. But while I'm here, I want to make as big of an impact as I can and help as many people discover the purpose that they have within as well, right? Because it's well worth fighting for. A lot of times in life, it seems like nothing's going right or life is meaningless, but the reality is that you have to create your own meaning and you have to discover that within yourself. And the only way that you can do that is by putting the work in to do that every day. And so I appreciate the kind words. I'm just a normal guy, but I'm just grateful that I do have this platform to be able to to spread that message to others.
Today's episode is brought to you by SAPS. You know, staying hydrated is crucial, whether you're working out, working hard, or just going about your day. SAPS is not just any hydration drink. It's packed with electrolytes and essential minerals like sodium, potassium, and magnesium that help you rehydrate faster and more effectively than water alone. It's perfect for those hot summer days, intense gym sessions, hanging out with friends late night, the sauna, or even if you're just feeling under the weather. What I love about SAPS is that it's not loaded with sugar like many other sports drinks out there. It has just the right amount of sweetness and a refreshing taste that makes staying hydrated enjoyable. Plus, it's available in a variety of delicious flavors, so there's something for everyone. Whether you're an athlete, a busy professional, or someone who just wants to feel their best, SAPS has got you covered. And the best part? You can get SAPS delivered right to your door. Just visit sapsoriginal.com and use the promo code MEATMAN15 to get 15% off your order. That's sapsoriginal.com and use the promo code MEATMAN15 to get 15% off your order. So why wait? Hydrate smarter and feel better with SAPS. No, absolutely. I mean, I really think that you've hit a mark in what is news these days, because I think a lot of people have gotten away from watching the television or watching some major channel to inspire them or to like make a decision in their life for the day because of like, oh, well, I heard on, this or that, it's just not really talked about that like anymore. Like you and I, when we were growing up, where did you read the newspaper about like somebody, like, did you see it in the paper headline right at the front page, right in the paper? So it's just like people don't trust certain sources now. So they go to podcasts or social media and other platforms to get their news and get their opinions. And you are what you eat socially. So whatever you consume is going to be that's what your breath is going to smell like. It's like, that's if that's what you're consuming and that's who you're listening to, that's how you're going to talk, because you run into it all the time with people, whether it's somebody your age, younger, or, another generation, because that's the only options we have. And we all collide into these weird little sandpaper moments of, well, I heard it from this and I heard it from that. And well, I've been listening to Joe Rogan since, and it's just like, okay, like just calm down for a second. And I just think it's great that you're having this wholesome, easy, digestible message. And the content is very, very palatable, and it's clear, and the message is there. So I just, again, not to double down, but I just want to, again, what you're doing is sparking a huge interest in the media that we consume and the way that we do it. Because if you're going to choose to use Facebook or Instagram or podcasts, that's kind of what we got now, because NBC and all the other channels are failing people in that sense of like supporting them of what, when they say something and people are like, no, that's bullshit. Like that doesn't sound right. That just doesn't sound right. So I think it's great because you've created this box that isn't going to stop growing. And I mean, you're just, this is 6 months of this.
Yeah.
So times that by X, Y, and Z. And I think you have a solid formula, my friend.
I don't know the formula, Brian. I'm figuring it out as I go. I think for other content creators that are looking to scale and grow, I think it really does come down to being as authentic as you possibly can and being consistent, right? Like that's what I had in mind when I first started this, was that I was going to post every day for 80 days and do it consistently. and be authentic, right? Like I can only speak to what I know, and what I know is my kid, and what I know is the outdoors, and those are things that I'm really passionate about, and so I'm going to speak to that. And it's you're so right about mainstream media. People don't trust mainstream media at all because there's always this agenda, right? And it always seems to be an agenda based off of making more money and not about truly helping people or informing people. And I think people are moving towards some of these more independent outlets to be able to get their news and draw their own conclusions about things. And it's a great thing, because if people can be informed and truly like take a variety of different opinions and inspect those and take what fits and apply that to their own understanding, then that's the key to true knowledge, right? Is doing the research and not just watching a headline or watching one video on the internet and using that to draw your conclusion, but understanding a variety of different opinions and then seeing what meshes with you and using that to seek truth.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that you have touched on some major points there because, you just said, I know what I know, and I know the outdoors. I know my kid. So I think it's great because you're sticking to the things that you can reach out and touch. There's you're not trying to do anything extra, and there's no side agenda or anything. Like, you have been very clear in your message in the sense where I'm teaching sustainability. I'm showing nutrition, but I'm not like impeding that on anybody's, schedule. It's just that you just happen to harvest your own animals and then make things from that, as far as different cuts from deer, different, things from fish, or like I mentioned earlier, you got creative with the trout dip. I think that's great. I think you should keep doing cool videos like that, because that is one of the main reasons years and years ago, when I even heard about Steve Rinella, about like why I got attracted in general. Because growing up in a hunting family, it's kind of shoved down your throat so much. You're just like, dude, can I just go like play basketball or like play video games or something? Because I just want to do the opposite of all of this walking and sitting in a blind for these ducks and stuff. Because I just think I got taught the wrong way. No offense to my uncles or my dad, but they're always like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to walk around and sit in this blind, do you? And I was like, I guess not. And I guess I don't. And so then the older I've gotten, the more I've wanted to contact and have contacted my cousin about more hunting and more sustainability, because it's like you said earlier, it's not about the amount or like, yeah, I just filled my freezer. Now what? It's more just like, I want to have enough of this to just keep going, because having enough of the things that you've brought to the table yourself, it's like you said earlier, there's a gratitude in that, and it almost like fills you in a different way. Like, I'm more full when I eat something that has been either A, locally sourced, or B, if I'm lucky enough, when my cousin ships me, or I meet him up for some meat, and it just feels better. So do you have any like other plans for with the things that you're harvesting this year to just kind of keep doing the same cuts, or do you have any big plans for like any big recipes?
Yeah, so I'm always looking for ways to make palatable things out of unpalatable things, right? A lot of times in the hunting community, you'll hear negative things about geese or certain kinds of ducks or antelope or, a variety of different game tasting too gamey. And I'm always looking for ways where I can create something just knock out of the park good. And so like in previous years, I learned how to make wild goose pastrami out of goose breast, and it is a
So
crowd
good.
pleaser. I mean, my family, my girls, they are not huge fans of gamey tasting meat or things that just kind of taste a little different than what you would get at the grocery store. And they were the first to absolutely annihilate this stuff. Putting it on Reuben sandwiches with sauerkraut and Thousand Island dressing on my homemade sourdough bread, and so like I'm always looking for recipes that are going to sort of make something possible out of the impossible.
Do you still make bread then?
Yeah, I'm back to it, man. The
That's
sourdough, yeah,
love
Gladys is alive and well.
it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's the name of your starter.
Yeah, Gladys.
No, that's great. Yeah. I watched a video of a guy who was flying with a starter because he flew from uh like New York all the way to LA with a starter just to like go transfer it to somebody. So he said it was funny just carrying that on the plane with like this big box that just like had all of these stickers on it of just like, fragile, like like it's food. Like, I don't know. It was just this whole thing of like treating the starter with just such care. So I think that's great. It's like a very A to Z thing, and it's not just meat or it's not just meat with you, like produce, bread, milk, all the, water, all the above. It just seems like you're really doing what you're supposed to be doing, at least.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about sourdough bread is you can easily make a loaf of sourdough bread. It's very easy to make sourdough bread, but it's very difficult to make good sourdough bread because it requires time and effort and labor, right? Like the amount of times that you fold a loaf of dough contributes to the quality of the gluten formations within that bread. And I think it's kind of a metaphor for life, right? Two people can chase the same goal and they both might get to the same end result, but the amount of effort that's spent chasing that goal can vary from person to person, right? And if you don't spend time on if you don't spend quality time on accomplishing tasks to be able to facilitate your goal, then the overall quality of the result isn't going to be as good as somebody it's not going to be as good as somebody that puts the time in to be able to make a firm foundation for something. And I love that about sourdough. I love that about creating a fantastic dish. I love that about the quality of the garden that you create. It really does come down to the level of effort and passion that you imbue into it. And then you see the results, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% right on that. Um, and it's so true too, because one little step to the left or one little, hiccup can definitely change the molecular structure of the bread, because I've had instances where I've made it and it's really dense. Like it's
Yeah.
just really, really like heavy and dense. And it's like kind of almost too moist in the middle. It's not like cracking like sourdough, like not like the stuff you gave me. And so, yeah, it's, I think it's a great metaphor for life. And that, if I was talking with my girlfriend earlier, that intentions in everything shouldn't be anything more than subtle, because if you're putting so much weight and effort and all of this, tie it up in a bow with your intentions, well, you're kind of getting away from your goals, because you turn your intentions into goals and then it gets all muddy in the middle, where intentionally for the last 4 years, I've just had it where every day, if I don't drink and I don't get into this habit of eating like an absolute animal, then I've done something right, because I've intentionally just set this very small set of goals as opposed to turning my intentions into my goals and be like, and it just goes all over the place. But taking a step back into kind of the hunting world of things, because I grew up in a world where I always knew that my cousin would pack like a bazillion gummy bears, beef jerky, really high caloric, things, because you do burn like 4,000 calories on the trail if you're going to be walking as much as you do for things like deer or elk. You're walking like 10 or 20 miles a day. So what do you pack on the trail to, keep yourself sustained, but you're not going to be suffering from, a sugar like bomb or intake or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for backcountry hunts, I think it is important to prioritize volume versus quality of food, right? Like you want to make sure that you're packing nutritious foods, but you also don't want to pack so much volume that you won't have space in your pack to be able to store it. And unfortunately, and a lot of ultra runners and just endurance athletes will say that the most unhealthy things pack the most calories a lot of times. So I try to balance between that, right? Like I think that we have a food dehydrator, and so I'll dehydrate a lot of fruit like mangoes and apples and stuff like that I can bring on the trail. That's going to give me quick bursts of energy and sugar, but also packs down really small. And then dried meats and stuff like that as well. But yeah, it's not always perfect. And to be honest, my guilty pleasure out on the trail is Sour Patch Kids. After you've been, hiking all day and you get up to a mountain peak and you're just like doing some glassing, pulling out a couple of those bad boys is always pretty delicious. So, I think it all comes down to balance, right? Like my body just simply can't tolerate like cramming a bunch of Little Debbies and, like ultra processed foods. But there's always a balance, right? Like I'm not trying to say that I'm holier than thou to anybody else. And it would be ludicrous to say that I don't enjoy those, especially the blue Sour Patch Kids. Yeah.
Noted. I'm gonna remember that. But yeah, dude, it's insane because some of these guys that I'll see some of these running content where they're making pancakes and putting double stuffed Oreos in the pancakes and things like that. But no, I get it. So yeah,
but that's much different than somebody that's sitting at home, not expending 10,000 or 5,000 calories over 12 to 15 hours, right? Like I think there's a definite difference. And for people to compare themselves and be like, oh, well, I can do that because Courtney Dahlwalter, is doing that, is just kind of comparing apples to oranges, right? Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like comparing apples to donuts. It's like,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah. No, I get it, dude. So do you have any like really fun meals that used to be kind of considered a cheat meal, but you've been able to make healthier because you're able to source so many, sustainable things?
So cheat meals for us, I mean, the cheat meal for me is always pizza. Cool. we love pizza a lot. So I'll incorporate, deer meat into pizza, or I'll put elk on top of it.
You made sourdough pizza?
Yeah, made sourdough pizza. Yeah. And that's relatively easy to do. Yeah, but so pizza is like the big go-to cheat meal for us. Other than that, like, I don't know, we're pretty pretty basic. Like we eat a lot of like meat, vegetables, rice, and that's like the staple of things. Unless my daughter is obsessed with spaghetti and would eat it at every single meal if she could, but we can't because it's you can never eat just like one bowl of spaghetti. It's like, oh
No.
well, we've got a colander filled with spaghetti. Might as well just like eat more spaghetti.
Yeah, no, I understand that 100% just because I think it's cool the conversations I'm having with people about either the balance of like, oh yeah, every now and again I go have this, that, or the third, and I just chalk it up to the game and like that's it. It's like whatever, like I'm gonna go have the burger or the slice of pizza or the cake or whatever. But I think it's also cool that there are people who are finding ways with protein powders or dehydrated meats or different forms with like baking with raw milk or other things like that, where I do think it's cool that there's a lot of influence and influencers and other cooks that cook on different social media platforms that are showing people that you can do that. Like we were talking about in our conversation yesterday about like, yeah, like I love a milkshake, but I'm not going to, make it just super unhealthy. Go get Breyer's ice cream and Hershey's chocolate syrup. I'm going to try to find some good chocolate and like actually maybe make the ice cream myself. But
yeah,
my last question for you is, because you're doing a lot of this like wilderness father training for other people, because I know you're hosting a retreat soon and you'll be getting it, at least it seems like, I'm not going to call it, but it seems like you're really focusing on two aspects: the general public and then fathers. And
yeah.
I think that's really cool that you're not just, I'm the wilderness father and I only help fathers. Sorry. You're helping everybody else too. So are you going to be incorporating like any nutritional like type of content in that as well for people or fathers?
Yeah, I think a lot of the programs that I'm creating focus on schedule building for lifestyle success, right? And that's different for everybody, but I think that there are basic habits that can be implemented whether you're a father or not in order to live a successful life. A couple of those tenets are incorporating some form of a diet. It doesn't have to be keto or carnivore or whatever,
Right.
insert whatever diet. But I think that it's good to be mindful of the food that you're consuming and to have some sort of guidelines in your life so that you don't go off the rails, right? Whether that's intermittent fasting, it really just has to work for your schedule, right? Or, your personal preferences as a person. But I think that having routine and structure in all walks of life, whether that's your physical exercise routine or how you manage your day with a busy job, or being a parent, right? Like it's all a big package, right? And it all requires mindfulness about each of those components, and nutrition is one of those. So when I'm thinking about the wilderness father community specifically, but also families or individuals that are looking to improve their lives, I'm thinking about how can we tick all of the boxes, whether that be wilderness survival skills or a physical regimen or a mindset component where you're journaling and like really living an active life where you're searching for understanding in your own life as opposed to just passively observing this existence. Because I think that a lot of people do that and then they get to the end of their lives and they're like, what the fuck happened, right? And it's like, if I can prevent one person from coming to that realization, right, and like actively living this life, then then my mission is complete.
No, I really, really like the way that you put that, because I think everybody has something about them or something they do that could inspire somebody else to do something. I think every single person has like one or X, amount of things that just put it together. And for you, that is this sustainable conservation, being a good person, but also, showing that, hey, I'm a parent and this is how I'm parenting my kid. And now I'm going to show you in the sense of father to father, person to person. And I just think that's great, because I think what you're going to see is more people than you could ever imagine being impacted by what you're doing. So I just wanted to, put flowers on and give you your flowers, man, because it's incredible. It's truly incredible just to see how many people are affected by the things that you do in just the last 6 months. Because I read your comments, dude. I read what people say in your threads, and it's all, for the most part, mostly positive things. It's mostly people who are coming from a positive angle, which I think more people need to see in social media, because there's this stigmatism that it's all bots and it's all people who are just commenting to stir up arguments and make people upset at the person posting it. And I think you're doing the exact opposite. I think that you've hit some sort of core with the pickaxe, that you've hit a vein in people. And I just think that it's going to continue to expand, and you have my full support in what you're doing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it really does mean a lot to me. I think that the coolest part about this whole journey is hearing people say things like, man, you really helped me put things in perspective, or you inspired me to get my kids outside, and we created a great memory together. And I mean, that's the goal of all of this. Sure, there are quite a few people out there that have negative things to say, but as a creator, I think, it just comes down to realizing that those people are in pain for whatever reason. Like, there are people that have pain, and the only thing that they know to do is take it out on others, right? And that's this whole like victimhood mentality, I think, that's so prevalent in our society today, where people would rather focus on things external to them to blame themselves for their own problems, rather than take the small steps to be able to change their lives. And and I feel for those people, but I just think as a creator, it's so important to take both the good and the bad and realize that the most important thing is the mission, right? Like, don't be swayed by good comments or bad comments in your journey, because good comments can serve to make you take your foot off the gas as well.
I fully agree with you, is that you can't just have both energies. Yeah, it's great that people are just commenting good stuff, but don't ever let that relax your passion. So
it can get to your head too. It can get to your head when it seems like everything's going right. It's really easy to not seek out new wins, right? And to celebrate early and think that you've arrived. But it's my personal understanding that we've truly never arrived, right? We have to continue growing and learning new things, new concepts, and continue pushing forward into the unknown to be able to reach new plateaus of understanding and of growth, right? And so like, it hurts getting called bad names, right? But if people are saying only good things to you, you're not going to grow either.
No, absolutely, because the journey of 1,000 steps starts with one.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today in this conversation. I really appreciate all of the, just everything that you've put out today. I love that, what you're doing in the world. And I think that, again, everyone else loves it too. I think that there's a lot of people who resonate with what you're doing. And I totally support all of it.
Thanks so much, Brian. And best of luck to you with Clean Plates.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I'm just trying to be out here talking to people about their relationship with food, because I think it's something that isn't spoken on enough. And I'm just kind of practicing more with these conversations with people about what the real aspect of my journey is, because, I learn from all these conversations and I see a lot of things that I don't if I wasn't going to have them in the first place. So yeah. I just thank you for being a vessel for that, because it's allowing me to continue to learn and grow this podcast into what I think it could be.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me today on our flavorful journey here at Clean Plates. If you enjoyed our exploration into the world of food and the stories behind our eating habits, be sure to subscribe where you get your podcasts. And don't forget to share your own food stories on my personal page at Brian Waterleaf or the Clean Plates podcast page on Instagram. And remember, every plate has a story and we are here to discover them together. So stay curious, keep exploring, and continue to nurture your relationship with food. I'm Brian Romaine, and until next time, keep your plates clean and your hearts full.